A lot of people think that Caveira is a bad roamer, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Caveira is actually outstanding in this meta. The reason for this being is that her presence alone as an operator completely changes how the attack needs to play in order to counter her and win the round. To explain, first I'll need to go over why people think she's bad in the first place. With Jackal, Lion, and Dokkaebi being in the game, it's increasingly hard to roam in general with any operator, especially in today's current aggressive meta where these particular operators are being played the most they've ever been played. Pair that up with the fact that Cav's gun and main ability can seem underwhelming, and it's no surprise she's seen as a non-viable operator. But none of that actually affects Caveira. Let me explain. The mere presence of Caveira being on the board alone elicits a good and thorough roam clear and or flank watch. Most people would assume that every roamer requires a thorough roam clear, but that's not necessarily the case. What you need to keep in mind is the fact that Caveira has interrogations as well. Interrogating?
Spill it. You can run, but you can't hide.
As you can see, this is a very powerful ability. You're given wall hacks onto anybody on the enemy team. With this powerful of an ability at the fingertips of any player, no matter the skill, it requires attackers to be more cautious than usual when going up against Cav. If you've ever played against a Capcan, it's the same principle. You force attackers to be slower and look at doorways just because your Capcan traps exist. Caveira's interrogations elicit the same fear but in a different way. If you're playing Caveira, you force the attackers to stick into pairs and not play by themselves, because if they do, they run the risk of giving you a safe interrogation away from any of their teammates that could help. We already talked about how powerful interrogations are, so you can begin to see how much of an issue Cav is already, but this isn't even scratching the surface of her power. Not only does Caveira force people to play together because of the threat of an interrogation, but she also forces people to roam clear her because of her playstyle. Now, you'd imagine that every roamer in the game would need a roam clear, right? Especially if you need to take rooms that they're roaming in for playing vertically or things of that nature. Well, you'd be right, but Caveira takes this to an entirely different level. If you know there's a Caveira, and a good one at that, you know that Caveira's main ability, the silent step, makes her playstyle naturally more on her feet and less stationary than someone like Vigil or Solus who needs to be still. Because of the nature of Cav's ability, it's much more preferred to roam for flanks than it is to roam for holding space, although roaming for space is still viable for her. Most players don't know this, and I guarantee you don't either. At least, not to the extent that I'm describing. Caveira is not meant to roam and hold map control like every other roamer, although like I said, it is still a viable option. Let's take a look at Vigil for example. Vigil, in many players' eyes, is the perfect roamer because he excels at wasting time and information with his ability, which is what a roamer is meant to do. A lot of people think that roaming means you need to get kills, but that couldn't be further from the truth. As a roamer, you're meant to hold rooms off or near sites to waste time so the attackers can't immediately pressure the objective early in the round right when they spawn in. Caveira is not meant to do this. Like I said, Caveira's silent step makes her naturally adept at flanking instead of holding control over a room. This means that attackers, when roam clearing a Caveira, have to worry about the initial roam clear like they would with any other roamer, and they especially have to worry about the flank that might happen with her as well. Due to the fact that most people in ranked don't know this or aren't even coordinated enough, you can abuse this. Caveira's silent step forces attackers to be more coordinated because you just selecting Caveira in general gives them the fear that you could roam or you could flank, and if you were to do either, they couldn't hear it coming anyways because of your ability. Not only are you able to abuse the fact that most players don't even know how to counter Caveira, but you can also abuse the lack of droning in today's meta. Even I, a multi-time PC champion player, doesn't drone as much as I should, and in an increasingly aggressive meta, most people aren't droning either, which is great for Caveira. Let me explain. A huge part of the bad rep around Cav is that she was a bad roamer in the information meta a few years ago. This is when Jackal and Lion were at their apex and Dokkaebi was just coming out. 3 operators that directly counter her. But information in today's meta isn't as meta or as much of a threat. This allows her to flank easier due to the lack of flank drones being used, and it allows her to hide in corners or sneak around enemies without the fear of drones seeing her. Even if people do drone in this meta, most people don't drone properly and miss drone corners, which is another thing you can abuse. One thing that's especially good about Caveira is that Caveira's silent step allows her to be at multiple places seemingly almost at once, because when she disappears, you don't know where she will appear next, making you have to worry about all kinds of flank routes and angles you wouldn't normally have to had you been going against someone who isn't silent like Vigil. She applies a lot of ghost pressure in the sense, which I will go over later in the video. This is insane. This alone means that her presence requires good attackers to kill her. If you don't kill her, she will always be a threat in the back of your head, and a very powerful one at that. If you require good players to kill you, and you play passively, you make them have to spend over half the round trying to kill you, allowing you to be the biggest time waster out of any roamer on defense defense if you do it correctly. And like I said earlier, the job of a roamer is to waste time, not to get kills. So if she does that job the best out of any roamer, wouldn't that make her the best roamer? If you're still not convinced based off of my explanation, here's the designer's notes page uploaded by Ubisoft themselves that shows that she statistically has one of the highest win rates in the entire game for a defender and for a roamer, to which she has had for multiple seasons, by the way. Now you may be thinking, well, Cav is good in low elo because people can't counter her and people play her a lot there and just dominate. So these stats are clearly skewed by low elo players. This actually would make sense, but if you zoom into the top of the graph here, you can clearly see that these stats are only from Emerald and above PC players, which are the best of the best players in the entirety of the game. Now, even with my explanation of why Cav is good and having literal data to back it up, most players will still think she's bad because it's a popular belief to have, and you're stuck in the past. So let me debunk the many reasons that most players have this thought process in the first place. The first obstacle being that a super popular and good operator, Jackal, completely counters her. This just literally is not true. When Jackal came out and had 5 scans, an ACOG, and no interaction with Cav's silent steps that she could use to counter him, then yes, this would have been true. But now, in this meta, Jackal doesn't have any of those things, and Caveira can also directly counter Jackal. Let me explain. When Jackal scans Caveira's footsteps, she will get initially pinged, yes, but any other ping that tries to reveal her after his scan won't actually work on Caveira if her ability is currently active when it tries to ping her. It's the same mechanic on Vigil vs. Lion, Vigil vs. Grim, and Noct vs. Alibi. If any of those people have their ability active while the other opposing people have their ability active, they will not get pinged. Not only does Jackal's ability not even fully work on Cav because of that mechanic, but also if you have your ability activated in the prep phase and in the early action phase, Caveira doesn't even leave any footsteps for Jackal to track in the first place. So if anything, Cav counters Jackal, not the other way around. The second obstacle is that Dokkaebi counters Caveira. This, unlike the Jackal example, is actually just true. But to that, I say that every operator has a counter to their ability. And as far as I know, this is the only genuine one to Cav. Being that every single operator has a counter in the game, I don't think it's enough to write Cav off as a bad operator just because she has one counter. Now, if you want to get rid of this though, all you have to do is ban Dokkaebi. Given that she is one of the most powerful and banned attackers as well, it shouldn't be hard to convince your teammates to vote with you when you try to ban her in the first place. The third obstacle is just watch the flanks or bring flank watch operators like Nomad, Gridlock, and Zero. Well, the issue with this is it doesn't even work half the time. If people play Nomad for flanks, which is already a mistake that I'll explain in a different video, you can easily just slowly walk up to it and shoot it. Given that you have a suppressed pistol, they won't even hear this either, allowing you to get free flanks and kills. If you're going against Gridlock, however, all you need to do is impact grenade her tracks or shoot them. They will, of course, know you're there after you do this because of the sound, but this is the beauty of Cav's silent step. Once you do this, you can easily run away or run at them, and they won't know which one you're going to do because of your silent step. This forces them to watch that flank that you destroyed their flank watch utility on, and watch other potential flank routes you can take as well, because obviously they won't be able to hear you either way, which wastes a lot of manpower, but more importantly, time. It's fear-mongering and ghost pressure at its finest. You don't even have to flank though, because like I said earlier, Cav can flank and roam in front of attackers for space, as long as she is constantly moving the entire time and abusing that silent step. Although, it's not preferred. The final and most important aspect of Caveira that I want to revisit is the concept of ghost pressure. If you don't know what ghost pressure is, I'll give you a quick explanation. Ghost pressure is not the actual act of pressuring somebody, whether it be from pre-firing or intel, but the potential for you to do so. I'll give you a quick example. You as an attacker are trying to clear library on Chalet, but they have that head hole reinforcement combo facing your double window. Even if no one is there, this is very scary for you because of the potential that someone might be there. This forces you as an attacker to not peek out the window, to drone, to pre-fire, and most importantly, to slow down. This is ghost pressure, pressuring the enemies to act a certain way or be afraid even when you aren't actually there, almost as if a ghost was pressuring them, hence the name ghost pressure. Now, how does Caveira apply ghost pressure? Believe it or not, literally everything I've been telling you throughout this video has been about ghost pressure with Caveira. You just didn't realize it. Playing Cav produces ghost pressure by making attackers have to play together because of the potential for an interrogation. Playing Cav produces ghost pressure by making the attackers have to roam clear the whole map to find you for the potential of an effective roam or the potential of you sitting in a corner. Playing Cav produces ghost pressure by making attackers watch every flank possible and roam clear simultaneously because of the potential that you might flank. Playing Cav creates ghost pressure in so many other ways too, that just you selecting her makes the attackers have to worry. Caveira as an operator creates not only ghost pressure just by existing, but she arguably creates the most amount of ghost pressure out of any operator in the entire game. Because it's not about how good Cav is as an operator objectively, or whose hand she's in. It's about the potential of what she can do. So I say to you, as a PC R6 champion, as a content creator, and as a teacher that you're trying to learn from, what is stopping you from playing Cav? She's statistically, logistically, and practically the best, easiest, and most impactful roamer out there, with only 1 to 2 easily avoidable counters. The answer should be nothing. My name's Alka, and check out this next video where I go over one tip for every single bomb site, and I'll see you on the next one. Later.